Hello everyone, welcome back to the Story Rift. In today's video, we will be counting down my top 5 favorite fantasy universes. So last week I counted down my top 5 science fiction universes, so today I'm going to be hitting fantasy. Now I kind of switch between which one I like better, science fiction and fantasy, it just kind of depends on the day. But today I'll be focusing just on fantasy, and this can be books, movies, just anything. So number 5 is going to be Realm of the Elderlings. Now I haven't read the Live Ship Trader trilogy, but I have read all 3 trilogies with fits in them. The world feels more contained in this series. Obviously, they do go overseas in the later novels, but mainly it's focused on Buckkeep and the surrounding area. While I feel like this series is more of a character focused story, I do think the universe really shines through in how unique it is. The wit magic is such an interesting magic system, and I'm not the biggest fan of magic systems, but the wit is really interesting, and it adds a more personal connection that I think a lot of other magic is kind of lacking. The wit being this kind of vile magic that's seen as this evil, but then you get to learn that it's more about the bond between animal and human as the story progresses. It just really works really well in this universe. Also, you have the skill, which is the other magic system, which is sort of like telepathy in a way, but it adds a lot to the story and it helps narratively drive the story forward. Especially if the characters are distant. It's a very nice way to kind of push the story forward and have all the characters on the same page without having them actually in the same place. And beyond that, I think the world is just fascinating. Obviously, there's kind of the mystery behind the Fool and his race, and the Elderlings, of course. And over the series, you get to kind of learn more about the ancient magic and the ancient sort of culture of the world, which I think really exemplifies the series and honestly makes it stand out above the rest. For me, this is how magic should be done in a fantasy universe. It ties everything together really well and really helps the world feel lived in and also feel very connected and unique. Now, number 4 on my list is going to be Dragon Age. Now, in my opinion, Dragon Age is how you do dark fantasy right. The blight and dark spawn and also the demon elements of this universe bring a grittiness and a darker feel to the universe that separates it from other, especially game genres, and even books and TV and stuff like that. I don't know, this whole universe just feels dangerous from the magic to the factions to everything, even the creatures in it. Everything is just so dark and gritty. And obviously, in like the Veilguard, they didn't really we don't talk about the Veilguard. I'm just talking about, the first 3 games. Let's not talk about Veilguard today, okay? Even just the way that and especially in Origins, the main protagonists are the Grey Warrens. Just the fact that the heroes of the story are made by drinking darkspawn blood, the very thing that they're destined to kill and stuff like that. Man, it's just such a great way to incorporate the darker elements even into the more heroic side or the more protagonists of the series. Thedas is such a lived-in place. Obviously most of the games focus on Ferelden, but also have Orlais, which brings a more elegant kind of very pompous aspect to the universe. And you even have places like Tevinter that I think help add a lot of unique and just great breadth of character and just cultures into this universe. Overall, the Dragon Age franchise just really delivers some of the best dark fantasy you'll ever see in any game, book, or movie that will ever be made. Overall, the Dragon Age universe just delivers some of the greatest dark fantasy elements and aspects I've ever seen to any universe. Now, number 3 on my list is going to be the Elder Scrolls. For me, what makes the Elder Scrolls universe stand out above the rest is the way that they incorporate the races. Each race feels unique, and it makes the world feel so diverse in a way that I think other fantasy series don't do. A lot of fantasy series I think are very medieval, Europe focused, with but with the Elder Scrolls, it really feels like they draw inspiration from other different types of cultures and also just brand new cultures like the Argonians or like the Dark Elves. Obviously, I mean Skyrim is one of my favorite fantasy places in the world, but there's also I love Morrowind as well, and also places like Cyrodiil bring a little more magical and mystical elements, I think, to the universe in general. And you also have the deeper lore, learning about the Dwemer and the Snow Elves and all the different I don't know, these lost cultures. It adds a sense that this world has been lived in for a long time and adds a lot of depth to the universe. The factions like the Mages Guild and the Aldmeri Dominion Also, just add another element to the universe, and obviously have like the Stormcloaks and Imperials. I don't know. I mainly talk about Skyrim, but that's just because that's my favorite game of the series. But I don't know. It's just everything about the factions really enriched the universe for me. Even the Elder Scrolls being this kind of MacGuffin to kind of explain away events in previous games is such a unique and awesome way to kind of focus each game while also making the larger world feel real and lived in. I don't know, to me, the Elder Scrolls universe is just such a great mix of mystery and culture that really blends well into a fantasy universe that really stands out above the rest. Now, my number two on this list is going to be The Lord of the Rings. Now, obviously, The Lord of the Rings was going to make it into this list. I mean, who would have not guessed that? Tolkien made a world that feels so real. Like, every corner of the map feels lived in, and it feels like there's a story to tell in each nook and cranny of Middle Earth. Places like Rivendell, Gondor, the Shire, and like Mordor, all of these, great locations just have been really cemented in fantasy and have inspired so many other countless fantasy universes. Obviously, The Lord of the Rings just feels like the fantasy universe that has inspired the rest. There would be no other universes in this video, I don't think, or nearly as well done in this video without Lord of the Rings. You have ancient powers like the Balrog and the Ringwraiths that add just such a complexity to the universe. There'll just never be another fantasy world quite like Middle Earth. Everything from the races to the locations all just mesh so well together. Sometimes I wonder if people know more about Middle Earth than they do about the real world. Now, before I get on to my number one, I'm gonna have some honorable mentions. So the first honorable mention is Game of Thrones. I love this series, even though the fourth and fifth book have kind of, were kind of a letdown for me. Having this very politically charged world and having a world in fantasy that's more drawn back in the magic in the world, it really makes it stand out. And another honorable mention is the Harry Potter universe. I mean, I don't think I really need to explain this. The magic in it is so amazing and has that wonder factor to magic that I think newer fantasy isn't quite doing so well on. And lastly, for my honorable mentions, I'm going to say The Wheel of Time. I do love this series, and who knows, if I reread the series again, it might be higher up on my list. Obviously, I feel like The Wheel of Time really inspired this wave of magic focused fantasy, even though I have some problems with that personally. You can't deny the effect that The Wheel of Time had on fantasy. And at number one, we have the Witcher universe. To me, The Witcher being number one was just obvious, especially if you know me. Like, there was no way The Witcher wasn't going to be number one. The Witchers themselves are so unique, and one of my favorite, I don't know, groups of people, if you will, in fantasy. These monster hunters that you would think would be considered these heroes, but they're more outcasts, and just the very creation of a Witcher during these trials that kills, I don't know the survival rate, but like this insane amount, like survival rate, to make these just unstoppable killing machines that are almost like super soldiers in a way in fantasy. I don't know. It's just one of the most interesting groups of people in fantasy. The fact that they're supposed to be devoid of emotion, but you have a character like Geralt who has so much emotion hidden underneath that sort of rough exterior, I don't know, it really adds another aspect to The Witcher. Sapkowski just does such a great job making this universe feel dark, but also realistic at the same time. The universe does not shy away from the darker aspects of the world, which I would say them, but I'd probably get this video removed or restricted or whatever, so I'm not gonna say them, but you get what I'm saying. While the magic is not as well thought out, it feels very powerful and very exclusive, if that makes sense. It's not many people can do magic, and those who can are sort of seen as outcasts in the world, and magic is seen as this very dark thing that's kind of, most people shy away from it, and I love that aspect of the magic in the Witcher universe. Also, just the conjunction of the spheres is such a great way to explain why there's monsters all over the continent. Just the idea that some of the monsters come from completely different worlds. I mean, it's just so cool, right? I don't know. It to me, especially playing the games, it was so interesting to see like, oh well, which monsters were there from the beginning or which came from other worlds. I don't know. That's just such a cool way to have monsters in your universe. The Wild Hunt is so threatening, and just seeing them and their search for Ciri with her powers and everything, having the Elder Blood. I don't know. It adds so much to the world, and it adds just such a great villain to the world. It feels like the Wild Hunt is this big great, like dangerous force just looming over the world, and that aspect of it is just so great for me. Overall, I think you can just tell that Sapkowski wanted to make a fantasy world that was unlike any other, and he kind of goes against a lot of the more cliches, especially in the literary world. I mean, obviously, I think the games do a great way of portraying the universe as well. I don't know. To me, The Witcher just brings such a unique perspective into the fantasy world, and so that's why it's going to be number one for me. Well, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, let me know in the comments, and let me know what your top five fantasy universes is. Do you hate me? Do you think my opinions suck? Well, tell me in the comments. And also make sure to like the video and subscribe if you want. Now, without further ado, I'll see you in the next one.